Mike Fairclough. That's who you're about to hear on the Tommy Sandhu podcast. I don't want to do this intro like I've done other intros because normally I'd go, Mike Fairclough is a this, or he's a stand-up comedian, this one's a stand-up comedian, this one's an author, this one's an actor, whatever. Because I've just done the chat with him, and you can probably see from my face, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're hearing it on the podcast, you can hear me stumbling around my words because I don't want to put a label on him now because we've just spoken about that. But I'll tell you why I was going to have him on. I was going to have him on because he is a author. And he made the papers a while back now, a few years back, because he's a head teacher at a school and he took a different approach and he kind of wanted kids to get active and he wanted kids to don't hide kids from sharp objects and make them play outdoors and, just a bit more of a kind of bolder approach to being a headmaster and being at school. But that was then. And, and I saw the articles and it had him labeled as the hunky head. That's what they called him, right? Because he's quite a handsome chap and all that. And then he got in contact because he used to listen to my radio show and he's now married to a Sikh lady called Sandhu. And they both listened to the show and he just thought the show was all right. And, we had a little connection on that. And then we were going to work together on a little project, like an audio project a few years ago. It didn't quite come about. But I've always had his number. We've dropped each other a message every now and then. And then he came on and it turns out we had a lot more to talk about other than his career and his approach to teaching and all that. So I don't want to call him the headmaster because we kind of spoke a lot in this podcast about spirituality. We spoke about him, where he's at, me, where I'm at, working out life, working out what it's all about. And I'm going to dedicate this podcast to all those people, maybe in their 30s, 40s, 50s even, who are just trying to work it all out. And I think that's why, this kind of conversation is the reason why I started this podcast. Because I like these kind of conversations. I talk a lot like this with my very close friends, just about what it's all about. And we went kind of straight in. It turns out we had a big connection because of his father-in-law. You're going to hear all about all this in just a few minutes. So this is just me talking to someone who I think I'm going to talk to again, who I find this in life. I meet a lot of people with my work and with this guy, there was definitely a connection, man. There was a vibe, and you're going to see and hear his love of Sikhi, his love of spirituality. Yeah, man, I hope you enjoy it. And I hope while you're listening to this, you think about your own world and where it's going and whether you're happy or not. And I don't know. Look, who am I? I'm still working it all out myself. So who am I to tell you? But I hope you enjoyed this chat. It's with Mike Fairclough. He is a headmaster at a school. That is what he does for a living. But this is just me and him, a couple of souls connecting. Enjoy. Finally.
Yeah.
Finally. Look at you handsome man, you. Look at that. Yeah. Oh, I like the look of the house. I kind of, what's the word I need to say? I haven't got the vocabulary for it because I'm not bright enough. But bohemian, kind of the lighting's kind of nice, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a nice fire. We have we're very sort of fire orientated in this house, so we have fires every night, and it's kind of got a kind of warm, wintry glow, I guess. And what about you? Where are you?
So would you say fiery people? No, not that's different.
Well, there is that.
Well, you're married to a Panjabi, mate. Of course, there's going to be fire.
Yeah. Is that your experience then?
Oh, of course it is. Of course it is. I think anyone who I think is from a hot country, even like generations down the line, there's something about a hot temperament that goes with it, and I think that applies to from obviously from some personal experience, but it applies to Israeli girls, Mediterranean girls, there's also, a lovingness that goes with that and a support. And it's all part of the nature.
Yeah, I mean, I do. So I was the mother of my two older boys.
Yes.
She passed away very sadly 10 years ago. She was Italian, and she totally kicked it, right? When she kicked off, it was like full power. And I remember when I got together with Sandeep, and she was very much like, oh, yes, and, you know, like very agreeable and things. And I said to her one day, you know, it's like, just to be clear, and if you just tell me stuff, like if you just agree with me, I'm not going to question that at all, because I'm a guy. I'm just going to take everything on face value. So if you've got anything you need to say that's kind of like controversial or, you know, opposite to what my opinion, whatever, please do just say. Within 24 hours, that happened, and it's been like that ever since.
So,
and it's good because it's good to know where one stands, and I think that's good for guys, really, to be perfect.
Fully agree. And on that note, slightly connected. When I first met my wife, and it was through like I say an arranged date, an assisted date, because I'd met her sister on a night out, and I'd had a few drinks, and I was moaning to her sister and a load of mates, going, "Oh, you can't meet any decent Indian girls. I've been on 25 arranged dates, rah, rah, rah." And I was just having a little rant, and I don't really remember it. But then she kind of went off and thought I was quite funny and thought, hey, it'd be good for my wife, Binny. And they set us up. But then when I met Bin the first day, she'd had a really bad day. And I rang her, when we were going to rent, she goes, look, I'll tell you the truth. I mean, I'm not in the best of moods. But I thought, I'd rather see that. Because I'd been on all these dates where someone kind of pretends to be on their best behavior and all that. And I'm like, I'd rather see you kind of at your worst. And then when I met her, and I thought, actually, that's all right. If that's your worst, if that's you on a bad day, I'll take that. You know, and
does that continue to be the case?
Yeah, well,
it must have plummeted to some darker places than that.
No, it didn't get too dark. I mean, but obviously, what that meant is, you know, if you start off with there's no kind of BS, as it were, you're just talking and you're saying, look, I'm sorry, it's how, but then I've become a bit kind of realer and more down to earth, I think, through her. So well, you must feel it more so than anyone that everything kind of happens for a reason. Look, you just touched on it there. I didn't know. Hopefully it's not too early in the conversation to go into it, but you know, you were married, your wife passed away, you have 2 children with her, and then you meet Sandeep. You know, from Italian to Sikh. Some would almost argue you're glutton for punishment there, because you know you go with 2 strong communities, 2 very family oriented communities. Maybe there's something in you that clearly likes that or is attracted to.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's something about the being attracted to something that's opposite. So I don't really run along sort of conventional lines of playing it safe and staying in my comfort zone. I have to say there's been a really interesting, very powerful experience that's happened recently, and that's that Sandeep's dad, my father-in-law, passed away 4 weeks ago.
Right. Who, by the way, can I say, we all know, because I'm from East London.
Yeah, right? I wondered whether you did, actually.
Yes, we know, my family know, my connected families know. He's a very respected Gyani. Now, I'm sorry that I can't say, oh, yes, and I was once at his, kind of the equivalent of like a kirtan or a bar or something that I don't remember that, because but my mum and my mussy will all be like, it's him. He's doing it. Oh, and he's, and they just say things like, oh, I love the way he reads. And they'll say that about a couple of their kind of favorite Yannis, as it were. I know it sounds like it's almost like they're talking about pop stars, but to them it kind of is, because it's more about, it's like light. It's what they kind of emit. So, sorry, you were saying, so Sandeep's father recently.
Yeah, so exactly that. So, and for anyone who doesn't know about him, his Siddle Singh Satara, and an incredibly accomplished musician, one of the founders actually of British Asian culture within Britain, and he was blind from the age of 2 and became a master musician on the sitar, tabla, harmonium, vajra, loads of different instruments, and memorized the Sikh holy book. His memory, in fact, was incredible. He had like over 500 individual mobile telephone numbers in his brain, right? This guy's like a phenomenal guy, and really loved up as well, and really heart-centered, and really in tune with the kind of like the deep teachings of Sikhism in terms of community and stuff. A total freedom fighter as well, I have to say, and utterly unconventional. He wouldn't put up with anything which was sort of dogmatic or dictatorial or authoritarian. He was, you know, an inspiration. And so, yeah, he passed away very suddenly, actually, a week after he was on stage in Coventry doing Keaton with like incredible musicians, the best I've ever seen him play, actually. And this good were up there, full power. And yeah, so he, a week after seeing him in Coventry, he passed away. And we've been since going through this really sort of like deep sort of like reflective time. And I'm kind of linking this to what you were saying about like the sort of Punjabi culture, because I feel like, so like this morning, I woke up at 5:30 and came downstairs, and Sandeep was in the living room with some candles. She does yoga, like this really sort of deep, sort of like amazing yoga practice, and chanting Waheguru as well. And I thought, okay, cool, I'm gonna join you. And I never usually do that. And I kind of, you know, got onto my back. She was just saying, just feel your spine, feel your presence, and just, you know, chant Waheguru and inhale and exhale and stuff. And, you know, I did have all the kind of, because I'm quite sort of anti-religion, anti-dogma, and, you know, in the sense that I think that everything should be very conscious, not just because somebody else does it or because other people have done it or any of that kind of stuff.
Because your elders tell you to, which is often what it is.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Well, same with anything,
But you know, do you know what? I did feel really grounded, and I felt really present, and kind of like my thoughts and things started to sort of evaporate and disappear, and I felt like it was a really good start to the day. And it was definitely inspired by Mr. Satara, is what I call him, who passed away, and also that kind of like deep sort of Punjabi energy. Interestingly, at the other end of the day, a bit like you, because when you were getting in touch with me earlier and you were saying like the kids still aren't in bed and everything's kicking off for them, that's the other end of the spectrum, isn't it, where everything's a bit like, whoa, this is now.
And you know it as a head as well as a teacher, you know, you want to keep your cool around the kids, and you know, but it's hard because, you know, again, in my mind, let's be honest, I'm thinking, right, I've got Mike, I've got this podcast I've got to do with him, and you and I have had this 2 years in the making, 3 years, but something like that. We've been talking about wanting to get together and have a chat, and this is actually, you know, I also think everything for a reason and perfect timing and all that. But you know, then you're trying. I'm thinking about the podcast. I was having a quick workout in the garage. I could hear the missus kind of saying to the kids, oh, "Come on, enough now. Time to go. Time to go. Time to go." And you know, they're shouting and they're kind of getting a bit cheeky back because I'm not there and I'm around the corner. So they got a 2-on-1, and you think, you know, there you are meditating at one side of the day, and I also listen to spiritual hymns in the morning because. But I don't understand them, Mike. So I was going to connect this with you.
Because this is interesting. So are they like shabads from the post?
So I do the, you know, the Japji Sahib, which is, you know, 20, 25 minutes long. But I do that because it takes me 20, 25 minutes to get out of bed, right? It just does. Like, I'd rather set the alarm early, play that, and kind of have that as my snooze for a bit. Yeah.
This is what Sandeep does, the same thing. I only found out the other day that some of those shabads are in Farsi, the Iranian
that's right.
language. It's like, wow, that's like amazing. But this was another great thing about the scholar that was my late father-in-law. He understood, he knew all, he'd memorized all of the shabads, all of them, and with various different sort of beat changes that were like really complicated. I mean, I've kind of like I've sort of grown a bit of awareness about all of this stuff during lockdown, because he wasn't able to, even though he wanted to, he didn't care about lockdown at all. He just wanted to get out and do his thing. But certain people were saying that he needed to stay indoors and things, and he started to kind of like lose his spirit a bit, because his whole thing was about savor and like the whole service and giving and all the rest of it. And it was Sandeep who said, let's find some of your archived shabads and you can put them on some, you know, Facebook and share them with the community. And then initially it was a bit like, well, so, you know, so it's not the same kind of thing. But anyway, Sandeep would find these shepherds, and he was able to say, oh, that was 1979. It was in this Gurdwara. It was at 1 a.m. in the morning. So in those days, they would go on all night as well.
Now,
you know,
now you,
and you'd be able to say which musicians there were and all the rest of it. But the incredible thing is that he had this phenomenally complex knowledge, which he gave freely to the community. He was never one of those who like wanted to conceal his knowledge and skill and stuff. He just wanted to give and to share with everyone.
Right. So you're a teacher, you know that. So what do you think that is? Is he slightly, so if you don't mind me saying, was he slightly kind of on the spectrum, that kind of almost that Rain Man mental ability, or is it that whole thing of, you know, because they always say people who can't see can tune into something else because all of their senses are then driven towards other places.
I asked him about this a few years ago, and I said, how are you able to do the things that you do? And bearing in mind, it took a long time to build up the kind of relationship where I could have that kind of conversation with him, because it was the first blind person I'd ever had a relationship with, and there was also a language barrier. And when when Sandeep and I first got together, I know that he was a bit disappointed as well. Like there was this kind of, he was still a bit in this like, oh, you know, I want it to be like a sort of Panjabi guy, you know, and all this kind of thing. That's my perception anyway. And over time, we really kind of tuned into each other, and I was able to have conversations with him, which were really deep and really cool. And I said to him one time, you know, what is it that, how is it that you're able to do the things that you do? So, for example, get on the train at Fairclough, go across London, go to various Gurdwaras, several, and there'll be like line changes and station closures and things, and you don't have a guide dog, you don't have a physical human being with you. How do you do that? Oh, and also, how do you memorize all these numbers, and how do you memorize the Sikh holy book, and how are you a genius on all of these different instruments? What is it that enables you to do that? And he said, I have an inner vision. And he pointed here, and he said, it's the inner vision that guides me. And he said that inner vision is God. So
just to point out, where you point, just for anyone listening, you pointed to them in between the eyebrows, which is where people say the third eye is, and spiritual eye and all that. So sorry, just for anyone who couldn't see it.
So we, there were a couple of times when we were on the tube with my father-in-law, and he always said, when we always said, oh, can we come with you and we'll accompany you and we'll help you get to your destination, he said, no, please don't, because every single time anyone tries to help me, I'm always late. Just stay at home, right? Do your thing, leave me to do my thing. And a couple of times we did follow him, and we watched how he was able to just use this. So it's basically instinct and intuition, but a very, very, very finely tuned version of that. So whereas my sort of analysis of it is whereas we've got the five senses and we rely quite heavily on sight, some people, when they don't have one of their senses, have heightened senses in the other areas. However, that doesn't mean to say that every single blind person has that gift. And I think ultimately with him, he was tuned into something just really beautiful, really kind of universal, cosmic, sort of, you know, it's about connection really. And, you know, call it God, call it universe, call it nature, call it what you will. But that's what he was tuned into, and he was able to use that as his guide, you know. And this was a guy who was also like immensely chilled and had a brilliant sense of humor. And, you know, when I'd see him come home, he'd just be like cracking jokes and things. And, you know, it's like just a beautiful, beautiful human being.
But, you know, as what I found out, I think it first happened when I was about 21 years old, and I went to my first Christian wedding. I had a mate from university who got married quite young, and he was quite religious Christian, and his family were quite religious, and his granddad got up and did a speech. And obviously, you know, I was just like, whoa, a church. I'm sitting in a church at a wedding. I'd only ever seen this in films. I'd been to all these Godfather weddings all my life. And the priest granddad was funny. And then a few years later, I met an imam, and, you know, Muslim, you know, religious preacher who was funny. And then and then I've met others in Sikh community and Hindu, and the Hindu ones because I've then gone on to host weddings, and some of the Hindu priests that come, are like, world renowned, but these big Indian basically the ones that can afford me to kind of host their weddings will bring down no, I'm only kidding. They'll have like a real lavish wedding. They'll bring down these kind of quite famous Hindu spiritual guys to conduct the wedding ceremony, and they're funny. Like there's a warmth and a comfort in their nature. You like being around them. They just give off this good vibe, and it sounds like you totally got that connection with your father-in-law as well.
And I do think so. My sort of the comment I made earlier about like not kind of resonating with religion, it's not actually it's not as kind of black and white as that or harsh as that. I've engaged with people from lots of different religions who are on a completely different path to each other, but are tuned into a massive love vibe, and you can see it in their eyes, you can see it in their behavior, you can see it in what they're doing. And it's like, the interesting thing is that there seems to be multiple different paths, lots of different ways of kind of accessing that kind of universal connection. But when people have got it, they've got it, and they don't even need to be necessarily religious. It could be just, it, you can see it in people's eyes. I found this during the when everything was a bit like wonky with the pandemic and as lockdown and things, and in shops you had to wear masks and stuff. I found that there was much more of a need to communicate with people with my eyes, and I would be just like, really kind of looking at going,
trying to home in,
in there, and 9 out of 10 times at least. People would be, and they'd be just like wanting to connect and things. So I think that, it's probably human beings' default position to be in a kind of connected space. I think that's really, for the majority of people, that's the case.
So do you mind me asking, how is everything in the house? I mean, you've got, your wife's father's just passed away 2 weeks ago. That's a tough thing. You guys all right? You guys okay? So because of the spirituality that runs in you guys, and clearly in you as well. Does that help?
So Sandeep's, ever since I've been with her, she's always spoken about her father's death as being something that she's been concerned about. Not because he's been unwell, but because she's had that fear, and they've had a particularly close connection. So even when she was like 5 years old, she would be going off on the train with her father. She'd be skipping school and going to the Gurdwaras and stuff with her dad. So she's been on stage with him and with him throughout her entire life, and she's had a particularly close connection. So what she has said is that she's got no regrets. She's got no there's nothing that she feels like she wished she had done or not done or whatever with regards to her father. And there's another, bearing in mind we're kind of in it at the moment, there's another just powerful energy that's unfolding. And I feel like that for myself as well. So although I've had lots of close deaths, with each one I feel like I know less about death, if you know what I mean. And I feel like the mystery becomes even bigger, and I have even more questions. And in a way, what that does is that kind of stimulates questions within myself about, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? And that's the kind of thing that we've been talking about right now. So shall we stop what we're doing and do something completely different? And that is basically what I think we're going to do now.
Yeah. Funny. Okay, so I've got something similar to that. My take on it to that part of your point is if lockdowns for me was like not necessarily stop what you're doing, but just whatever you want to give a go to, just give it a go. Give your kind of your dreams a go. Take a step towards that thing, but just hopefully it's just kind of lifted the fear element because of the inevitability of life and what we don't know, and actually on the spiritual level. And I've always said, like, even since I was in my early 20s, I didn't really know too much about religion. I've always said I'm probably more spiritual than I am religious. Like I don't necessarily believe in the physical practicing of anything. Like you should wear this or go to this. Sikhi has always said for me is like, like kind of God's everywhere. There's no point saying I'm going to go to the temple and be good. you
Yeah.
should kind of carry that on. And I kind of, and my dad, actually, I'm going to say this, when I was young, we were watching a film, and you'll know what film it is in just a moment, because he went, there you go. Look, if it all gets too much religion, trying to understand it, he said, just follow the 10 Commandments. He goes, 10 Commandments. He goes, that pretty much sums it up. And I was like, and so because I had a dad who was quite open-minded like that, like, look, just be good and do good and treat good and don't cheat and don't.
Mhm.
That's pretty much it. And then from that, I think everything else is kind of born. And I like Sikhi because it's not you must and you must. You know, I'm here with no hair on my head.
Yeah.
People go, grow your hair. And I'm like, I couldn't if I tried.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't
Yeah.
grow. So, you know, it's things like that. I mean, become about the physicality of it. And so, and with the comment about people's eyes, so much of people, you know, I love an old dear who's got that little twinkle in her eye. You know, you go to the bakery and she's all right, and you can just see it. She's got stories to tell. She's been there. She's, you know, probably a little flirt back in the day or whatever it was, but she's gorgeous still. You can just that. I love that. And I think there is so much of it that comes from the soul. And I suppose this podcast is all about connecting with people and connecting people's souls. And I generally, I'm not just saying this, I get a wicked vibe of you right now, but I got a good vibe of you back then. And when you reached out and said, oh, you know, you and Sandeep used to listen to the radio show and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I found out a bit more about you, and, you know, and it's kind of, I actually think it's now, it almost doesn't fit you being that whole, because I read the articles on, the hunky head. I think you're so much, yes, you are a very handsome man. I'll tell you that now, Mike Fairclough. But also, you know, look at the way you're talking. You've come on this podcast, and from the very start, you haven't mentioned anything about you. You've talked about Sandeep, the kids, and your father-in-law. So something in you is, like, I call myself, I'm like a narrator of life. I shouldn't really be on stage, but I'm happy just standing at the side of the stage, watching everybody else let it all unfold. And therefore, I don't really feel too connected to the action. I just like looking at it and going, oh, look how peculiar people are. And look at the way they do that. Oh, and that's interesting. Look at the way they do that. So I don't know. I think, you know, that's kind of your take. And, you know, your book struck me because it was, you know, I've always said, be childlike. And if you have a childlike quality to life, then you'll always be exploring. You'll always be questioning. And well, you tell me, what was kind of the theory behind that?
Well, I mean, first of all, just to kind of, because you've said quite a few things there, and the main thing is, like, so when we started to correspond, and then we kind of, you know, just like other stuff happened. I've got to say, it's like I'm in terms of getting back to people when they message me and things like that, I'm probably the worst person on the planet, right? Because I've got this thing where I feel like I've got to be in the vibe. This is what I call it. I've got to be in the vibe to have a conversation. And if I'm not really feeling like I'm in my heart, or I've got like loads of head stuff going on, I just don't do it. I literally don't do it. And it might be several months until I connect with someone, and I've ended up with basically just connecting with people who are exactly the same. And I think you're probably the same as well, where you're like, it doesn't matter about time, it doesn't matter about all that kind of stuff. You just, when you connect, and that's cool. So that's the first thing. And
on that note, are your friends, I've got to just make this point then, are your friends the kind of people that get that? Because
100%.
I've only got probably a couple, probably I'd say 2 or 3, 4 maybe, actual friends, a couple of mates from university, a couple of mates from around the area, and they absolutely know. I mean, I actually only see them once a year, probably, and maybe phone them once or twice a year. But it's fine when we are. And I mean,
we're quite happy to. So Sandeep and I are always. We have this thing where if we're invited anywhere, we're always a little bit disappointed because we just want to be hanging out together and doing our thing. And it's like, and yet at the same time, we do like to connect with people, and, you know, we're social and that kind of stuff. But no, absolutely, the kind of the people who we would count as friends are those who are just cool about everything. And it might be literally, as you say, once a year that you connect with them, but when you connect, you connect. So that is 100% the vibe. The other thing you mentioned was like the sort of the media stuff that I've been involved in. And I have to say, it's like all of it is basically a sort of pastiche of me and or pretty much a facade. It's not actually, you know what it's like with the media. It's like there needs to be a hook for things, and so when I was doing all of that stuff to do with health and safety and the school, and shooting and rape, like having water buffalo and all of that kind of stuff, that was all things that are happening. But the only way the media would take an interest in it is if I was dressed in a bear coat and I was on a quad bike and things like that. And I remember there was one Channel 4 piece which was really well received internationally. But the first time they came to my school, I just thought, I'm going to play this straight. I'm going to, wear a normal coat. I'm going to just like talk to them about health and safety and stuff like that. And we did today's filming, and they said, oh, the cameras didn't work. We need to come back again. I was like, oh, all right, don't worry. Anyway, then the producer contacted me and she said, look, can you just get your bear coat on and like come across the marsh on the quad bike? And, it's like, basically, it's like, that's what kind of people want. And I had a lot of resistance to it. And then once I did it, I realized that you do need to have a kind of hook for that kind of stuff. And at the same time, I'm kind of done with it as well now. I'm actually done with it. I feel like I've, the message has got out there. I've done all of that kind of stuff. I want to move into a different kind of deeper kind of vibe now. And it's, so it's been an interesting learning curve, but that's not really me. No, that isn't me, the person on the TV and in the papers and stuff. That's just a version of me for a purpose.
It's a headline thing, right? So it's, as always, people want to know, and I get it in TV land, radio land, audio land, whatever work I'm in, because I do my stand up, I do TV, I do radio. I'm a dad, but I think I'm pretty a dad first, because all of that can go, but I still want to be a dad. You can't, just don't take that away from me. Then and if I'm really harsh about it, and then husband second probably, but I want to be a good dad. My dad is a good dad. I want to be a good dad, and they are the extension of me, and they are, and I want them to be ready for the world and all those things. So I think we're all many things, but then TV world, and particularly, I don't know what to call this, not fame, I suppose, being known and out there, everyone needs a hook. What is he? Oh, is he a comedian? No. Well, yeah, but I'm not funny all the time. Sometimes I just want to have a chat. And actually, if they knew I woke up and listened to the part every day, they'd go, "Oh, he's a bit militant Sikh, isn't he? Bit hardcore on the old Sikhi." It might be a bit like that. But I'm like, yeah, but that's one part. And actually, it came about because I've been in Dubai for a month. It came out that some of the boys were over, and they went, "So what?" Amazing! I went to put on. I'd sync my phone up with the TV to play some music while everyone was kind of getting ready to go out. And the Bard came on because that was the last thing that was on that morning. And they went, "Oh, what's going on here?" And they're all, Sikh as well. They're like, "Didn't know you were hardcore." And I'm like, "No." Then I was a bit embarrassed. I'm like, "I'm not." But they started with the radio as well, because you're going on to the radio show, and you're going to play music for 4 hours. I don't want to listen to anybody else talking, so I don't want to do talk radio, because it did my head in first thing in the morning, and I felt it was really quite negative, because it was like gossiping stuff, or it was about heavy news stuff, and I'm like, man, I'm going to wake the nation up. Yeah. Hopefully with a smile on their face. And I don't want to do this having heard about death, destruction, murder, misery, rape. And I'm like, it's like I was, as a sort of soul, I felt sensitive. And I was like, this is not the time to get that. Whereas because I don't understand, like I said, I don't understand the language, the words in it, but I know the vibe is good. So 100%. That's like, so even when I was in Dubai and then I hear the azan at 5:15 every morning, I love the sound of it. And I don't know what you're saying, and I looked at the mosque because I could see it from the balcony, and I went, that could be an Italian church. That could be it is a mosque. It could be a gurdwara. It could be a mandir. It could be a synagogue. And I went, that was all. So I had a little moment to myself, like, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's more about energy. So
it's the energy. There was this that makes me think about when Sandeep's dad died. The day he died, this guy called Juggy, who's this really awesome, he's huge guy. from Coventry. He's like all real proper like Birmingham accent, but he sings. It's like this beautiful, just chocolate kind of stuff.
Lovely.
Anyway, he started doing kirtan at the house, and Sandeep said, right, I want this every single night. So she sent out messages to all of the students who Mr. Satara had taught, and all of the like top level musicians as well. And they would come to the house every single night. There was this impromptu kirtan like every single night for 3 or 4 hours, and there'd be this like just constant playing. And it's reminded me of this gentleman, and I'm afraid I don't know his name, but this like wicked guy with his like unbelievably massive turban, sort of a bit like the kind of warrior kind of turban, a bit half kind of like how the sort of Panjabi big one as well, not Kenyan like a lot of the guys. And he was on 2 nights he was doing playing the shabads, and I was being told that they were in Farsi, and the light in his eyes and the smile on his face, I was absolutely transfixed, and I felt like I was like just receiving this like really healing, really lovely love vibe. And on one particular night, he didn't speak English either. On one particular night, at the end, he gave me like this shout out. And one of the Uncle G's said, oh, he's just given you a shout out because he feels like you've really connected with the vibe. And yeah, so the point being that it's like, I don't think you need to understand the words. It's all about the energy. It's all about the feeling of it. And you know if you're aligned to that and you kind of connect to it. And that's kind of what you're talking about, I think.
Yeah. So don't you, for you as Mike Fairclough, you know, Caucasian lad, you know, I mean, I'm trying to work out how I fit into it all and what I'm doing and my connections with religion or culture or history or empire and all that. Do you kind of want to think, man, how have you come along to find this thing with religion and with your wife, or just, you know, spirituality and life and your kids or work or the things that you were trying to do, you know, do previously?
Yeah.
Just how do you make sense of it, or do you try and make sense?
So I definitely don't. I think it's not to do with any sort of blood background or anything like that, because they were during these events there were also people, not musicians, but people who were there who were not digging the vibe as much as I was, and they were like Punjabi Indian people who were like chatting in the kitchen or just not necessarily sitting down and sinking into the vibe. So I don't think it really matters whether you're from the culture or not. It's more about like how you resonate with that particular energy. And it's like you said about the sort of the paraphernalia. I mean, you could be like completely turbaned, have the 5Ks and all the rest of it, but actually if you're not really like say a good person, then all of that stuff's total nonsense, isn't it? But in terms of my own kind of experience of it, I just feel very blessed to have to have met Sandeep, to be part of this experience. I'm learning a lot of it through her as well, because it feels like everything's unfolding through her practice as well. And it was interesting, before her father died, there were about 4 weeks where she was getting up in the morning and she was just like, and bear in mind, this is like, Sandeep's like a party girl. She's like, you know, she's proper, she's a lawyer, she's a yoga teacher. She's not, you know, there's nothing like holy about her. She's like very out there kind of person. In life. And she's very heart-centered. And she was getting up every day and she was doing her mala, which her father had given her. And she just felt compelled to do this. And then 3 days before her father passed away, she had this like really cosmic dream. She woke up and she said to me, oh my God, I've had this like insane dream where there was Guru Nanak, my dad, and I always call him Guru Gobble Singh, but it's not the correct thing. The guy with the hawk who's on the horse.
Guru Gobind Singh.
Gobind Singh, yeah. So Sunday always takes me out for saying it incorrectly. He's the dude, as far as I'm concerned, the freedom fighter, full power. Anyway, so she had this dream where he was on one side her father was in the middle and Guru Nanak was on the other, and she woke up with tears in her eyes and she said, I think they've come to call for my dad. Now, I've heard her say this for 10 years, like this sort of thing, being worried about it and all the rest of it. And I said, look, your dad, we literally saw him 5 days ago on stage. He was totally fine and all the rest of it. And then 4 days later, he left his body. And it was like, wow, you know, it's like life and the universe and connection and everything is so much deeper than sort of contemporary culture leads us to believe. It's way deeper, and it's when we have these sorts of deep connections and deep experiences that we kind of like the veils to that are removed slightly. We can look and we can see some of that truth. And so I don't feel like I've particularly got any answers or massive insights which I'm able to kind of share and say, oh, this is the score or whatever, or anything. It's like, if anything, I've got more questions, as I said previously, and more of a sense of mystery than ever. But maybe that is like the point, you know, maybe that's the point. And it's like that kind of like deep sinking into that kind of, wow, all right, so life is really magical. What am I going to do with it now? And that's the place I'm in.
And people can get lost in that. And people can find themselves in that. And I think it can go one or two ways, or you can be lost for a bit and then you have little flashes of finding it. I get, it sounds I get little flashes of what I just call just brilliance, excellence. Everything just feels fantastic. Now, I get that sometimes in the gym. I can get it in the temple. I can get it when I'm just with my kids. But it's an energy thing. It's not from something, you know. I might, it's like, you know, even if I'm just sort of sat here where I'm sat right now, I'm by a window to the left of me. And if the sun's coming down and there's actually my neighbour's tree coming over the side, which is lovely. And it's got all these kind of lovely, like, you know, and I see my kids playing to the right of me. You just kind of go, you get this kind of, you know, I'm going to sound cheesy saying it, but like a woosah, like, and it's like the sweet spot. When I play basketball, and if you shoot the ball and it doesn't touch the rim, it goes straight in. It's like, oh, it's just clean. It's beautiful. It's just everything just feels great, but then it doesn't last very long. And people say if you can get yourself to a meditative state and you can kind of tune into that more so, then you can feel that all the time. But I also think, no, there are some fun things to experience. Like I love a really good high definition 4K TV, you know, like I love Netflix, you know, and a great show on there and entertainment and a wham bam scene or whatever. So I don't think it's wrong to enjoy those things. No. It's funny. It's not, I didn't know where this chat was going to go. And I love all this because I'm at an age in my life where I'm questioning. I'm kind of going, so I gave up booze a couple of years ago. I don't do any drugs, obviously, but I don't. And so people often have said, you know, they go, oh, he's on something because I talk fast and I've got a lot of energy and I've never done any of that stuff. So, so right now, and I'm training every day right now. So right now I'm feeling kind of clearer than ever. And it's a new, it's only about 2 or 3 weeks old. So it's really weird that you're come on now and you're saying all this stuff. Cause I'm like, man, is this another sign again? Where's it all going?
Yeah, so I find, so it's like there's an interest. So you talk about the things that make you feel aligned and where you're like, whoa, I'm in the flow, basically. And so I feel like I'm sort of full of like contradictions in a way, because at the same time as sort of dissing the kind of like media stuff and all the rest of it, there's, when it comes to performance, when I'm performing, I actually have that feeling as well. I have that flow feeling where it's like, wow, this is incredible. So I'll give an example. I before any sort of public speaking stuff, even before I do an assembly in front of my school, any sort of TV thing, anything like that, I have an incredible amount of anxiety before it happens, right? Like major stuff. This morning I had to give an hour talk to what used to be the Times Educational Supplement, but it's now called TESS, and it was like this sort of conference in Birmingham, and I was like speaking online. It was only about the kind of stuff that I always talk about, but I think because of the experience I had with Sandeep this morning, like really dropping down, feeling grounded and all the rest of it, I ended up doing this gig. and didn't have any nerves at all, and felt like I totally rocked it. And I said like what I considered to be like funny jokes, and
Yeah.
people saying, "Oh, you're great," and all that kind of thing. And it's like that felt really cool. So I do feel like for me, that element of things I really enjoy as well, and that kind of aligns me. And at the same time, I have resistance to it, and that's what I'm saying. It's like there's these sort of interesting, sort of contradictory parts of how I feel about stuff.
So on that note, then it makes me think of letting go, and I talk about letting go quite a lot because I think actually none of this around material, physical, none of it really matters. And weirdly, I kind of had that thought process. I was quite young, and I remember I was saying to my sister when I was about 12 years old, I said, "How do I know? How do I know that you're really my sister, and that mum's really mum, and dad's really dad?" And and she went. And she was 6 years older than me, so she was 18, and she was studying sociology, psychology stuff at A level. And she went, "Well, if a psychologist was analysing you, you'd say you're so self-centered, you think the whole world evolves around you, and that's why you're asking that question."
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the conversation ended. I was like, "Oh, okay, that's not one to say out loud ever again." But what I meant by that is, it doesn't really mean anything. Do you know what I mean? Nothing really means anything.
No.
And therefore, I don't get nervous when I go into. I mean, I have the anxiety of, okay, don't balls this up and don't say the wrong thing, and I have to map through the words. And I always just, someone once told me, know you're in and know you're out. No, you're in words and you're out words. The rest, I always think, oh, I'll be okay. I'll find my way through it. And I've done it now for 25 years. So even if I have fluffed up what I was going to say, I can get around it. Enough. Because you've done it. You've just got enough stage time, mic time, camera time to do that. But my whole thing about, and I say the same to my boys. I go, who cares? Who cares what anyone thinks? And I'd like I said, come back to the freeness feeling, and it feels like you're going to sort of the same way. How you felt when you described that assembly and that and the test thing is, you're like, actually, I'm not gonna. You didn't give the time to the anxiety. You didn't give the time to the fear.
No.
And you let go. And
but there's also a need to push. I think to push oneself out of our comfort zones as well. I think that is a really, really important part of what we need to do. So you can stay in your comfort zone and stay in the kind of what you think but sooner or later, unless you move yourself out of that, which everyone has some kind of resistance to, it will happen, because there'll be loss, there'll be death, there'll be world occurrences which will make you have to move out your comfort zone. And so I think, for me personally, I make myself do these sorts of things because I feel like it kind of trains my emotions, my mind, my spirit, and that's something that we do as a school as well. It's like we really, really are positioned with a lot of research to back it up as well, like positive psychology and things like that, to encourage children to move out of their comfort zones. Because I feel like over the last few years, there's been this. I mentioned anxiety. There's been a massive overuse of the word anxiety, when in fact anxiety is a diagnosable condition. And it feels like it's been sort of demonized and made to be something that we should push away from ourselves, and rather than actually something which everyone feels every single day. And you just got to kind of find a way to kind of deal with it. And rather than just looking at that stuff and hoping it's going to go away, you can actually find the antidote through building resilience, and resilience is found through moving out of one's comfort zone. So that's kind of the mechanics behind what I kind of do.
And I've seen that so much in stand-up, which I've just got to stand up in the last couple of years, 3 or 4 years, but obviously lockdown, it all stopped for a bit. So a couple of years stand-up. And I remember being very aware, thinking, oh no, I don't mind going on stage and being a bit funny when I'm introducing a show, I'm introducing artists and acts, I've got something to do. But just to go up and go, hey, watch me be funny. That, I was like, actually, that's not really my style. And to this day, I've got to say, it's not something that really interests me. I like hosting stand-up shows and doing a little bit of a set in between, but really I'm hosting them and I leave the comedy to somebody else. But all those comedians that come on, I see, and I purposely I leave them alone beforehand, because they're all pacing around and they're all a little bit mapping through the words. And even though some of them are seasoned pros and they've done it 1,000 times before, they all get that what is deemed to be anxiety. And I'm like, I don't think it is anxiety. And I've always said, because like you said, anxiety, like OCD, is a diagnosable thing, you know, and it can be debilitating. Is that the word?
Yeah,
you know, it can be completely crippling. But actually, all they're feeling is, holy shit, don't cock this up, you know, kind of feeling, and like, holy shit, I hope this goes well. And I'm like, and that's okay, because how weird would it be if you didn't feel that, you know? And actually, and as soon as they're on, I'm talking as soon as they're on, 2 seconds in, boom,
it's
something
incredible,
happens.
isn't it?
It's and that
see,
is
see, that's
that
what
is,
I'm talking about. That kind of energy that's sort of channeled in those moments when you're in that performance vibe. You are channeling something, and it's like there's the Czechoslovakian psychologist with the easy to pronounce name, but like incredibly long, begins with a C, and I can't remember what it is. But basically, the guy came up with the concept of flow, and he said that it's like he looked at sports people and of various artists and so on who would get into this heightened state of ecstasy during certain kind of practices, and it could be like physical exercise like you've been doing, where you're, you know, if you think about it, you've got your endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin like flooding through your body, and you're like, you know, properly getting high on your own body's sort of like naturally occurring chemicals. And you know, I mean, what do? Are you doing like, have you got, what sort of stuff are you, because I'm visualizing you in your garage like doing a sort of rocky vibe. What's the vibe?
Well, so it started in Dubai, because obviously the kids weren't there. They were there for the first week, and then I did 3 weeks of mine. So I was just on the cross trainer. And it's funny, as you were just saying that, being in the vibe, I was thinking about workouts. Exactly, and you said it. Which is, and what has happened is I've been on the workout and I listen to music, and music is such a big part of my life. And sound, and I've heard recently people say sound and spirituality are so closely linked. And you know, a tune will come on, and I'll be on the cross trainer, and both my arms go straight up, and I'm like, oh, you know, like, and it's literally. And I put up a video actually a couple of weeks ago where I was like making out I'm dancing on the cross trainer, and I was turning the cross trainer into like slow dancing, hip hop, and then, you know, drum and bass and jungle and go over, because I was vibing off the songs when I was actually on it, and I thought, actually, let's turn that into a little something and make a little silly little video out of it. But so it takes over. And look, I know it sounds cheesy, and I'm not that guy. I don't know why I feel these things, or I'm not trying to preach about it, or I'm not trying to tell anybody else to be a certain way, or definitely not like now, just because I've given up drink and that, you know, I'm not thinking, hey guys, you should all do this, man. You'll feel so energized, because the last thing I want to be is that person, because I do remember the feeling of, you know, boshing cocktails and shots, and I also had a good time doing that as well. You know, but. And I was always a happy kind of drunk. Like I've never been in a fight in my life. I've always talked myself out of it, to be honest. If I've said it was always because I've said a joke and I thought I'm funny, and I've just touched a nerve or something with someone, I've gone, oh, and I'll just apologize. Because I'm not about that. So yeah, it's just like, in the gym, you get the feel good on, the song comes on, and all of a sudden the lyrics are more poignant, and it is, you know, it's quite superficial hip hop lyrics of like about giving it all the large, and, you know, and all that. But I'm having a good time.
Hip hop's brilliant for weight training, isn't it? Because it's like you feel like you're sort of, you know, properly like bad boy, and it's like, and it works, doesn't it?
Exactly. So
my thing's also rock. I'll be honest. I've got because I've possibly because of my sort of cultural background, I've like full power, like to kind of go a bit heavy metal with my kind of workout vibe as well. It's a bit of a mixture of everything.
But what is that? It's all energy. So okay. So where's it going for you? What's, because here's the truth. I had you on because thought we were going to talk about you and being a headmaster and the book and the things you've done, and obviously I knew married to a Sikh lady, and you know, I knew about your father-in-law passing away, and I knew he was a spiritual man. But I can see how, you know, your whole life has changed from meeting your now wife and meeting your father-in-law and his involvement in you. I can see you're a ball of energy, and also being a teacher, you know, that is something that is all kind of energy. You are giving yourself. You are passing something on to these kids. You are injecting a sort of a vibe, a feel, you know, something that's going to continue through them. God, I would not be where I am if it wasn't for 2 or 3 key teachers. I was 13, 14 years old. I was with the kind of rude boys in school, and Mrs. Byrne, an Irish teacher, took me aside and she said, and I'm not going to do the Irish accent, although I'm tempted to, because I was going to think it's going to devalue the story. But she said, Tommy, you're different from them. And I'd cut yourself away from hanging out with them, because that's not you. You know, they were the ones smoking in the back of the, you know, the field, the playing field, and running. And while I was with them and they were all smoking cigarettes, the teacher, deputy head came over, saw me, and everyone scarpered, but I didn't run because I didn't have anything in my hand. So I just walked away, and he went, Tommy, come here. And he went, what were they smoking? I said, cigarettes. And he went, anything else? I went, no. And he went, fine. And then off I went. But it was like he just wanted to know that it wasn't anything more untoward. Yeah. But that teacher then went on to become my English teacher, and he got me into literature. I got an A for English Lit GCSE. I don't come from a house of readers. There was no, sit on my dad's knee and read from a kid. But I loved it. I loved the analysis of books and characters and people, and Wuthering Heights was great, at A level, and The Handmaid's Tale was great at A level, and I just got into those. And Shakespeare was great, and I got into my drama teacher, Mrs. Burt. Teachers, I mean, God, you're the power you've kind of got, or the ability, the potential is. I mean, you can't ever. I know you will never underestimate what you can.
So I resonate with everything that you're saying, and I've had teachers in my life who've inspired me in the same way, and I hope that the things that I've done at the school have been of that kind of ilk and level. I also so I haven't really talked about this at all because this is quite new stuff, but basically Sandeep and I are talking about like getting out of the system now. So we've
in what way?
So Sandeep started building a what she calls the temple at the end of our garden. We've got a really like big wooded garden, goes onto fields and things, and it's this oak framed, really lovely space, hexagonal in the kind of echoing the a honeycomb from a beehive. So it's like every side's hexagonal, the roof's hexagonal, etc. And made by this like really beautiful guy called John, who's a mate of ours, who's just like proper like old Sussex. Everything's like pegged in and everything. It's taken 2 years to just get to the point that it's got to, because he'll also just suddenly disappear like this sort of like Merlin like character. It's like, where's he gone? And then he just like reappears and slowly does his thing. And we've been talking about this as a space for Sandeep to teach her really deep yoga practice, and also for us to maybe do some of the things that I've been doing at school, like forest school and lighting fires, cooking over an open fire and that kind of thing. Also having kirtan at the in the temple, so getting all these guys from, it'll be so cool, get the guys from London and Coventry, get them into the country, proper Desi vibe, because we have fires everywhere. It's literally just like fires and food or everywhere, so there'll be like proper fire food, and just create these kind of experiences. And so yeah, I feel that I feel the system itself, I have become I've worked within the system to make changes, and I think I've done a lot of changes in terms of outdoor learning and embracing risk and danger and all of that kind of thing. And I also feel like the system now is becoming a bit stifling for me, and I don't trust it hugely in terms of the incentives and the intentions behind what happens within the kind of like education system. I don't think it's necessarily for the good of the children. So I'd like to create an alternative, and that's what we're seriously considering doing. And it's quite possible that for the first time in 25 years, I'll be leaving the school system within the next few months. That's basically
wow. That's a big change. It's okay. And just my little connection to that is, I suppose after I went through my stuff with work, and also then with lockdown stuff and all that, I kind of looked around and I went, I'm not sure if this is the world I'd want to sign up to.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's another way, but I don't have the information, the knowledge, the experience, or the get up and go and the drive like you guys have to do something about it. but I think there is another way of everything from education to relationships to how you treat people to politics to probably economics. And I'm like,
definitely. I feel like on a sort of societal level, governmental level, economics to like big tech, all this kind of thing. I think that it's become the interests of the few who kind of like control the kind of game. I think are just trumping everyone else's sort of interests. And I think there's a lot of things which are happening which just kind of need like looking at very, very seriously. And I mean, it's things like I've been following things like the farmers' protest in India, which these guys, interestingly, a lot of them, like a lot of the guys in Delhi are like Panjabi guys from on tractors who travelled all the way down there with the swords in their hands, going, actually, we're not going to be done over by like sort of elite, sort of like corporate interests and so on and so forth. So yeah, tuning into a lot of that kind of thing, but being optimistic about the possibility of alternatives and feeling like there's possibly like an awakening as well. I think there might be a sort of on a quite big scale, lots of people are looking within themselves and reevaluating things and just thinking, well, do you know what? We don't have to wait for somebody else to solve our problems or some savior to come down and, like, who's going to save me? You can actually do that yourself, if you look deep enough and then make the changes.
And maybe that's the real message behind religion and spirituality, that's the savior. The savior is within and all that, and you're the one that can do it. Hey, listen, Mike, this has been great. And I almost feel like we're just sort of scratching the surface because I want to learn through this podcast. I want others to question themselves and what they're doing. And ultimately, you want people to feel that what you call alignment. I want people just to feel the alignment of life. Like, actually, it's all right. Me and my wife don't see eye to eye on every little, what I call the superficial detail.
Yeah.
But I've got a great woman. I've got great kids. I've got loving parents. I've got two older sisters, which are like me having grown up with three mums, my mum and them two. I'm all
That's
right.
gratitude, though, isn't it? It's like, so gratitude is such a fundamental part of this process. So everyone within any situation can look at the situation and go, it's like when Mr. Sitara left his body and, there was that massive heart-wrenching experience of like, wow, how can this happen and all the rest of it. But everyone was able to look at that experience and acknowledge that he had a good death. There was no huge decline. He went in his prime. He did it in exactly the way that he would go on the train. It's like he went to hospital with a small infection and was in a ward with loads of other people. And then the doctors were walking around checking on people, and there he was. He was like he'd left his body, and they were like, well, we didn't know that was going to happen. And it was exactly the same way as he would do everything in his life. He would just go and do his journey and his traveling on his own in his own time, but without really hassling anyone. It wasn't a burden to anyone or anything like that. And it's not that anyone would have begrudged needing to look after him. Bear in mind, he's 85, 86 years old, roughly, of course, because born in India and everything. It was a beautiful and a good death. So I think that in any situation you can find gratitude for and be thankful for things, and that's the seed, the beginning of of those things which kind of make you go, actually, I'm pretty lucky here.
Yeah, exactly. And we all are. And I'm lucky to have got this chat in with you. So thank you for that, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy. Really good to connect with you.
Man, big time. And pass on my love to Sandeep and the kids and everyone else. And good luck with the what the temple in it's very easy for me to make a joke here about Asians love building a little something at the end of the garden.
There is that. No, 100% there's that.
Yeah,
so
but you've gone full on.
Extension, without a doubt, this is definitely a kind of Indian extension as
well.
It's
an extension at the end of the garden, but an extention of your spiritual.
And of course, there's food involved and everything. It's like it's everything. It's 100% that vibe. Well, you have to come over when it's rocking. Come over and we'll have a nice vibe. Bring your kids and everything, your wife, and we'll have a nice vibe.
I would love that. I really would love that, and I mean that the most. So thank you. And And take care. And I'll catch up with. Well, number one. Let's get you on. Let's get you on again soon. This is number one on the podcast.
Yeah. Cool.
We'll do it again. But I don't want you to feel that. Oh God, that anxiety feeling or that angsty
Oh
feeling.
no, I don't with you. No. To be honest with you, with stuff like this, I don't have any resistance or problem about it at all. It's more like big audiences, which I enjoy playing in front of and performing in front of. It's just like, you know, a little bit of stuff that I have, but that's good. That's fine, isn't it? That's
brilliant.
Part of it.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mike. And we'll catch up soon.
All right. Lots of love.
Pal.
Take care, Tommy.
Bye.
Take care.
You.
Bye.
Hey, before you go, have you hit subscribe to the podcast yet? Have you done that? You should. Have you also started following the Tommy Sandhu podcast on social media? That's on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook as well. Do it. Because then, you know, when those annoying little notifications pop up with the random stuff that you've agreed to let into your life. Okay, delete those. Let some Tommy Sandhu joy in. You know I'm going to be talking to the good people. You know I'm going to be having some fun chats. Why not have those on a daily basis and get the notifications as well? All you got to do is hit subscribe and like and follow, and it's free. It's free. It's our favorite word. Asians love free. Say it. It's free. Oh, it feels good. Go on, do it now.